podcast, and I do. I don't know if you know that, but check out the link in my bio if you want to find it. Okay, so, all right. I think we're good to go.
I'm good on my end.
Good on my end too. And I think the audio is going to be great this time.
Yeah, a lot better already.
Perfect. So to get this started, I first want to hear from the people who are on it live. When you guys think of instant gratification or delayed gratification, there's a lot of talk around, well, it's righteous to delay gratification for things. And at the same time, we also have many scriptural evidences of instant gratification and that it was a good thing. So what are your thoughts? What are your questions? And we will jump into that. So Kenny and Jaden, instant gratification. What do you think?
Okay, so I have very conflicting feelings about this. So I was talking to my wife about this recently, and I had noticed a friend purchasing something really nice for themselves. When I say really nice, I mean like $500,000. It's not a house, like very, very nice things. And I'm like, what? Like, why does that matter? Like, how does that help anything? And I'm like, the only reason someone would get that is to like gratify themselves, or to store cash in it is like a tax shelter, and that's totally fine. But I'm like, why, like, at what level would I have to think that I would just reward myself lavishly? Like, I don't, like, sometimes I just literally don't get it. But at the same time, I'm like, how will I ever be pleased with life until I'm able to please myself? So that's where the conflict is. So you guys help me.
Great question, Ken. So I think for me, it really comes down to like a seasonal approach to a lot of principles. Like I think that God is an individual who operates in like situation context. And that's why it's so important for me, like when I'm learning anything, to also understand like the context of what was happening and like what was actually going on. So when it comes to instant gratification, I think that there's times where it's an absolute good thing. And I think there's times where like, it's probably not the best route to go. So I know that's not helpful in like polarizing and creating sides here on our live, but for me, I think that it's helpful in some scenarios and helpful and like not helpful in other scenarios.
I would say that I think instant gratification is awesome. I think that this is something that we actually, one, should strive for as saints, and two, are actually equipped to strive for as saints, because gratification or instant gratification, and let's just define this, right? I am speaking instant gratification as asking for something and receiving it immediately, right? So if you guys are thinking something else, then clarify. But for me, that's the concept. And that's what the principle of miracles is, right? Like, to receive a miracle is to practice your faith in such a way that the doubt that exists, which I would say is the space between what you ask for and what you receive, whatever exists there, it's not time, it's doubt. And if you can undermine that doubt and you can get rid of it as quickly as possible, then you're actually able to get things in the blink of an eye. And this is improving your health. This is receiving miracles, receiving payments, receiving a companion. Like it doesn't matter what you're asking for when you're acting on the principle of, I can ask, I can believe wholeheartedly, nothing wavering, and then I get to receive. And there doesn't have to be a timeline there, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking about this, and I'm going to give you scenarios, okay? And you got to like tell me what you would do, all right?
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, so here's a scenario. You're walking down a nice street with really nice shops. Okay, we're talking about like Burberry, we're talking about Chanel, we're talking about Coach, we're talking about luxury brands, nice items, things that's
where
like,
I like to hang out.
Like if I went in there and I bought something, I could technically afford it. It just would be like a little irresponsible. You know what I mean? So let's say it's could be a clothing item, right? Let's say it's like a really nice coat that's like very classy for wintertime, that's designer brand, right? Or shoes. Why not shoes, right? When is the line where you just say, yeah, I'll just get it for myself? And is there like a delay in that? Like that's like instant gratification, right? It's like I see it, I want it, I buy it, right? Like, so what do you do in this scenario? Like, given that you do have actual funds, but let's say those, when you pay for it, it does make things tighter, right? But you do actually have things. Like, it's not like you're taking out a loan at payday loans to buy it, right? Like you have them, but it just does make things tighter. Like, what do you do?
Oof, that's a really good question, Ken. I think like the line for me between like just giving me what I want and what I desire and being irresponsible is like determining and asking myself like who, according to whom, right? Is this irresponsible according to whom, right? So in my sense, like it does become irresponsible if number one, I can't afford it, right? In terms of like, is it going to put me financially in a place where like I have stress, anxiety, and scarcity moving forward because of this purchase or investment into myself? Or is it going to put me in a place where I am energized and excited? So like in that case where I can't afford it and I want it, I'm going to get it. Reason being is like the return on investment that comes from that is going to be 10x like what it actually costs, because I continue rewarding myself and my self-conscious and my subconscious to show that I'm worth really nice things. But at the same time, like we have to be careful with that line, because you don't want to be responsible and spend money on things that are not at the right time, right? And what I mean by that is like if you don't have an active income built up yet, and maybe even like some possible passive income as well, it's like, okay, would it be better off if I put this money towards something that will create income for me in the future, or should I just reward myself now? So that's kind of like where I make that line of like ROI, because I'm a very logical person. I think that's why I'm like go about that strategy in the way that I do. So that's how I would go about that situation.
So I want to just draw your attention to your language here. So you guys are using these terms like responsible or irresponsible. Can I afford this? Can I not afford this? Right? And you're creating dichotomies around those phrases, and you're assigning meaning to what you want to buy based on essentially false things. Because affording something or not affording something, is this the right time? Will this put me in a bad place? Those are all perceptions. And I mean, Kenny actually talked about this in his latest podcast episode. Perception is nothing, right? Perception is only the meaning that you give it. So me in that scenario, I buy it because I assign the meaning that, okay, buying this pair of shoes or buying the coat or buying literally whatever, buying my dream Jeep. I have to tell you guys, so just a story. When I was coming back from Mexico, we had driven to Vegas and we flew from Vegas. And on our way back, I had so much fun in Mexico and I had made a few sales, and I was like, you know what? I think it's time for me to have my dream car because I want it now. So I'm going to get it. So we literally drove our car over to a dealership. I found the dream car and I bought it. And there wasn't this like, oh, well, should I do this? Should I wait? Should I have the cash, all saved up beforehand before I do this? And I just think that all of that is nonsense, because you're putting limitations on yourself when you're doing that. You're saying, I can't have X until Y. And like those are all contrived from your own imagination. And so for me, I'm like, if I want something, I don't put this like all of these stipulations around. I need to save up for it. I need to make more money. I need to like wait until whatever. I just decide, okay, I want this. And I decide that it makes me feel wealthy. It makes me feel pretty. It makes me feel abundant. It makes me feel whatever positive emotion I decide to associate with it. So I buy it and then I feel that positive emotion. And then that positive emotion then propels me into making another sale or getting more clients or getting into a different situation that improves my life because I've decided that whatever I want to buy gives me this feeling of being more abundant.
How about, okay, new scenario, another one. Because I can play this out all day, right? Okay, we're talking about instant gratification, right? This was an example about money. But what about health? Right? What about health? So it's one thing, right? To if you make a goal and you want to lose weight and you want to get in shape, and then you see like a cheesecake and you're like, I just want the cheesecake, so I'm just going to eat it. Right? Like this is a new thing. Like, is there anything wrong with that? Like, what if that was like a daily pattern? It was just always a cheesecake there and you're always eating it. Like, doesn't that get in the way of the goal? Isn't that like counterproductive?
Well, what does the cheesecake mean?
It means it's delicious. It's just that's a good question, right? Like, what does the cheesecake mean? Yeah, what do you think?
So I guess it really depends on like what the cheesecake really does mean for an individual, right? So like if I have a goal to get like 10% body fat, have a fitness photo shoot, I can have the cheesecake. It's just not conducive to what I want right now. So I delay that. And same thing with money is like those decisions that I base, like how I make those decisions is based upon my ultimate goal and like the order of those goals, which is why I think like long term when I do goal setting, I don't just have one goal. Reason being is like if you set one goal, you typically will self-sabotage and make that goal take forever to accomplish because people are like humans are driven by goals, right? So if we accomplish our goal quick, we lose all meaning in life. And so that's why if you set one goal, which is like what we're trying to get people to do, is like at least set a goal, guys. Like if you don't have goals in your life, set a goal today. But the problem with that and like the advancement from that is like you set one goal and you take forever to accomplish it or you never accomplish it. And that's why we need long-term goals. So in that setting, like with cheesecake, I would definitely like delay that gratification if I wanted to get the outcome, or I would know that it fits within my plan, right? So if I had like, let's, for example, had macros, I would prepare to have that cheesecake and it either fits into that scenario or it doesn't. But what I don't allow to happen is like my emotions to change based off of if I can have what I want right now or not. It's like I'm always in a state of abundance. I'm always in a state of faith and certainty. And I don't allow the external world to like control how I feel. So that's how I would respond in that situation.
Yeah. For me, it just really depends on like what does the cheesecake mean? Because I am someone that I don't live within restrictions, right? So I'm not going to look at that cheesecake and say, I can't have that because it won't take me to my overall fitness goals. I'm going to look at that cheesecake and I'm going to say, do I want this cheesecake or do I not want this cheesecake? And I'm not going to make it mean all of these things, but I can put it in the perspective of, is this cheesecake going to make me feel good because I'm responding to something emotional? Is it going to make me feel good because that's something physical? And am I going to value feeling sick afterwards? I'm not someone who consumes very much sugar. So cheesecake doesn't really have appeal to me. And so overall, I can look at a cheesecake and say, I really feel good after I eat cheesecake. So maybe I'll have a bite, but this just doesn't really fit with me. I'm just not into it. So I don't care.
So it's not something that is gratifying to you, but let's say it's something gratifying, like pizza.
Okay, funny that you mentioned that, because I actually used to be like a pizza fiend, right? And I stopped. I just stopped. And it wasn't because pizza meant something bad. It wasn't because like I drew meaning around anything. I just decided I feel better overall when pizza's not part of my regular diet. So I don't seek it out. I don't crave it very often. And when I do, then I say, okay, I typically don't feel good after I eat pizza, but my body is really telling me like I want pizza right now. So I'm going to eat it. I'm going to eat one piece and I'm going to see how I feel. And if I feel okay, I'm going to eat another piece. But if I don't, I'm just going to stop. Right.
So it seems like the way you're analyzing this, Olivia, is that if it does give you consequences to have your instant gratification, you try and reevaluate it. Like negative consequences, what I'm talking about. Because there's positive consequences too.
Yeah, but I tend to only look for positive consequences, because in my experience, if you seek out negative consequences, you're going to get the negative consequences. Like if you prepare for worst case scenarios, you're going to see those worst case scenarios. That's why I only prepare for best case scenarios and assume the best outcome. And so, I'm going to say, listen, I like pizza. I'm craving it. I'm going to have one piece and I'm going to be fine. And I have one piece and I'm fine.
That's good. Yeah. So when you were talking about it, you said that like you didn't like how it made you feel afterward if you ate too much, right? Mm-hmm. Which then is like an evaluation of some criteria that was like not as helpful. Mm-hmm. So then you're trying to reanalyze what would be more gratifying than the pizza. Is that what you're doing?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, because instead of you're right, and so let me make this more clear. So there was a time at the beginning where I was saying, okay, pizza makes me feel sick, so pizza equals sickness, so that's something that I'm going to stay away from. But when I took it from a positive place of I honor my body, I honor my hormones, I know what makes me feel good, and so I'm going to consume what makes me feel good, then I can then approach a situation where I'm saying, do I want pizza or do I not want pizza? Then I'm not getting caught up in, well, pizza makes me really sick, so I shouldn't eat it, so I shouldn't have this right now. Instead, I say, I am in a place where I trust myself to take care of my body, and I can say that one piece of pizza is going to be fine. Does that make more sense?
Yeah. So it's what it sounds like to me is that you're not really delaying gratification. You're just choosing different gratifications once one becomes more important than the other.
Yes, very much so.
Okay. So then I bring that example up because it's not just cheesecake or pizza, right? There's like a lot of desires people have that have negative consequences, right?
Right.
I'm not crazy about that. There's negative consequences to having like instant desires that come up, and people do those desires, and there's consequences that happen in their lives. So is the right way to do it, like if it's like a pretty big negative consequence, to still delay the gratification, or just do it anyway and then figure out something better?
Great questions, Ken. I think, and so like I need to add some context to this as well. It depends on where you're at in your journey, right? Like I look at Liv and how she is making these decisions in her life, and I would not recommend that for someone who is like beginning this journey of personal development. Reason being is because she lives in this place of 100% certainty, right? So if I'm explaining like how you transition in life, and how I would paint this concept is helping you understand that like you start at this point, which we'll call A, and you realize I need to change something, and that what leads you to point B. And then at point C is when like you've started to change these things in your life, or you're trying to be more abundant and you're trying to be more faithful, but then things like C come up, which are like evidence is that you should go back to the way that you used to be. So like maybe you did get the cheesecake and you put on the weight back and like it ruined your plan. And so that is trying to make you like get off plan and go back to where you were comfortable. So the reason like I bring this up with the money example is because Liv like lives in a point which is past state, which is past like all those things that were telling her she shouldn't do it. She did it anyway, and she's seen like the return on the investment from living that way. And that's what's caused her to know, hey, I can live 100% abundantly in this place. The problem that I see with individuals who make that transition is they don't go all the way. Like you have to decide to go all the way, or else you're going to like play the self-sabotage game. For example, with the money example, right? Like you either need to decide like, this is how I live. And like when I invest, I get a return every single time, or else you're going to like make that jump one time and it'll be like the worst financial decision you ever made. Right. And so I do see some people that will invest in like getting a coach, investing into real estate, investing into a biz op. And they think that like, and because that's so outside their comfort zone, they prove themselves right and it goes wrong. And then they're like, oh, that was the worst decision of my life. It's because they don't think like Liv. So with that being shared, like my mentality is like, you have to realize where you're at in the levels of this game. And the game is like leveling up until you get to the point where it's like, you live the higher law of like realizing I can be completely abundant, completely positive, and completely faithful at all times. And I think that that's like the concept that I needed to share around like what's going on, because I'm looking at like our conversation. I'm like, we have three people literally making decisions three different ways. How do people decide like what to do from there? So I'm not sure, Ken, like if that answers your question, but I needed to add that context in so that people could realize like there's levels to the game. And depending on where you're at, like we can help you get to that next one by showing you, okay, this is the shift that you have to make mentally so that you can, you know, receive that gratification or know what to do. So you either like receive it or you delay it, and you know how to navigate from that place.
Kenny, if you have something to say.
I was waiting for you to answer the question.
Okay. So wait, which question?
It was about negative consequences, right? So like there's obviously some decisions people that they impulsively want to do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like there's otherwise it wouldn't happen in society. Like go smoking weed or drinking or having sex out of marriage or watching pornography or all those kind of things, right? These are like impulses people that they have, right? And if we're just saying like, well, have instant gratification, just gratify for yourself, right? Then isn't that going to have them run into problems?
Okay. So I want to answer this while also addressing what Jaden said, because I actually don't think that there has to be levels, right? Because I jumped into this 100% from the beginning. So I am someone who makes very compulsive decisions. I have always been that way for my whole life. And yes, there was a time where I was making these impulsive decisions that like gave me negative consequences. And so I made the impulsivity something bad about myself, right? And then I was unemployed. I had been unemployed for several months. I was living on a credit card and I could not get a job to save my life. And I connected with someone who said, listen, give me several $1,000s and I will teach you how to create your own job, be your own boss, and make your own income. And then you don't have to apply for jobs anymore. And I said, okay. And I did it. And I jumped in and I put several $1,000s onto a credit card that I was literally already living on. And I had no backup. I had no, okay, I'm going to have this job to pay this off. I didn't even have a job to pay for my life, right? And I made this decision because I decided to stop making my impulsive nature something that would lead me to negative consequences. I made the decision that I would make my impulsive nature work well for me. And so I just like in that like second, I said, this decision will bring me something good. And And like I said before, I'm looking always for the best positive outcome. And I started doing that from the beginning. This was the first shift that I made. And that's just what I continue to do. And yes, now versus 3 years ago when I started this, I can see like much greater positive circumstances. And I think that my like capacity for what's possible has grown. But I started from the very beginning. This will give me the best possible outcome. And that's all that I needed. That's all that I led with. And it has brought me my best possible outcomes every single time, even when that space in between, when I decide I want something and I don't have it yet, I can fail in there. And I can do things that don't work, and I can have outcomes that I don't want in that moment. But I say, okay, well, then this isn't like the final outcome. There's something more. I just need to keep going. I just need to keep pushing. And yes, I think that there's a skill of that kind of like zoom out, what's going to be overall the long-term effect here. But just generally speaking, it's just a decision that you can make. All of my impulses, all of the instant gratification that I seek out will bring me greater good. And then you can watch that happen.
That's very interesting. So you're basically saying like the quality that you have is that you are compulsive. And I think pretty much everybody on planet is compulsive in one way or another. And the key that you said was to make it work for your good rather than for your detriment. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So then there's people there. How do they make that shift then in their minds so that when they are compulsive and it's bringing them negativity, right? Like, is it just a decision? Is that what you're saying? It's just simply make a decision and then you move on and say, just watch how when you become compulsive about things that benefit you, how your life changes? Or does that like take away the desire for them to be compulsive about the things that are causing problems? Like what would you say?
I think so. I think that if you want to go down a journey of analyzing why you believe your impulsive decisions always bring you negative things, you can do that. I don't think it's necessary, but for me, it was very simply just a decision to say, you know what? I'm not my own worst enemy. Okay. I'm not bringing myself my worst outcomes. I'm just not doing that. So what would happen if I just trusted myself? What would happen if I knew that I couldn't mess this up? What would happen if I made this purchase and the next day I made a sale that brought me double the purchase, and that decision, that shift is curiosity around what's your potential here? Are you looking at this decision as something that's going to limit you, or are you looking at this decision as something that's going to bring you greater life? And I think that's ultimately the beauty of instant gratification, especially in 2022, where we have instant communication, we have an understanding of the gospel that we've never had before. We have so much at our fingertips to bring that instant gratification. Why are we making it something bad?
Yeah. These are very helpful. I like what you say. I'm going to move on briefly to another topic. We don't really talk about that much in the church, but I think we should. Plastic surgery. Okay. So the reason why I bring this up is because I feel like this falls right into the instant gratification topic. Because I mean, if you think about like, why do people get plastic surgery? Well, they're displeased with how they look and they want to be pleased with how they look, right? So it's like, I could, like if it's liposuction, for example, it's like I could go to the gym and lose weight, or they could just suck the fat out of me and like repair my belly afterward, right? or get a boob job or fix my chin or whatever it is, right? Like, so let me back up just a little bit. There's something called spiral dynamics. It's research done by Claire Graves, who talks about how humans go through a natural evolution cycle. And at some point, when people have been part of the system for a long time, let's say, and they've lost an identity in the system, and they've realized that they've given all of their life to the system and they've gotten very little in return. Yeah. So people work a job their whole lives and then they retire with like $1 million and retire, right? And it lasts them like 8 to 10 years, maybe. Right? So that's a problem, right? Because they dedicated their whole life to something and they get pennies in return, right? So there's people that realize this before it gets too late, and they start wanting to take matters into their own hands, and they start having a mental shift, which is like, I'm just going to buy things for me, right? I'm just going to, like, if I want to look good, I'm going to look good. If I want to break some rules, I'm going to break some rules. If I'm going to bend some rules, I'm going to bend some rules. Usually it's bending rules is what they do, because they like understand the system and they want to start bending rules so that they can get what they want more easily. Yeah. But like one thing that's common among this group of people is that they get plastic surgery, or they like just buy lavish things for the sake of buying lavish things. And in my mind, it feels like a waste of time. Like, what would you say to that?
Me or Jaden?
Liv, if you got feedback already, go ahead. I'm kind of thinking through this one myself.
Okay. So full transparency here. I get Botox. I have for years. I also buy lavish things all the time. So I am this person that you're describing. I am 100% someone who likes to bend rules. I like to break rules. I actually don't see a purpose for rules in general, so I don't subscribe to them. And I would say that there's a level of personal accountability there, and a level of personal awareness. And there are, like, it comes down to like, what do you want, you know? And so there's a book called Cybernetics, which is written by Maxwell Maltz, who is a plastic surgeon who actually was exploring the psychology of plastic surgery. And there is a group of people who get plastic surgery once, twice, maybe a few times, and it like improves their self-image, it boosts their confidence, it like propels them into so much success. And there is a group who gets addicted to it, and they keep coming back, and it actually propels them into like devastation, right? They no longer recognize themselves. They have no sense of confidence or self-image or self-awareness or whatever. And so he wrote this book, Cybernetics, to understand what's the difference in these two people. And he talks about, from his own research, from doing experiments, from coaching people who came to him for plastic surgery around why did they really want it. And he talks about how it comes down to, do you see the decisions that you make as contributing to your success, or are the decisions that you make, these impulsive instant gratification decisions, are they made to give you a sense of identity, right? Like, and they come from either a place of abundance, of, if I do this, if I buy this pair of shoes, if I get this Botox, if I do whatever, does that give me greater confidence and propel me more into what I want? Versus, if I make this decision, does that, like, is that a seek for a solution that I'm not finding in myself? Am I doing this because, in fact, I hate myself, I don't like looking at myself, and I'm looking for this external validation to make me feel better? And this is the same as relationships. When relationships bring you greater joy versus when they perpetuate your patterns of self-destruction, right? And it comes down to, am I entering this relationship from a place of awareness, a place of, I know I'm not perfect. I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to do what feels good to me. I'm not going to judge myself for it. And I'm going to be very open and transparent and choose to grow versus I hate myself. I want to get into this relationship so that I can feel better. And it doesn't make me feel better because at my core, I hate myself. Right?
Mhm. Yeah, and I think I can add to this too, Liv. Like from what you've explained, you do an incredible job of looking at everything as just simply feedback. Like it's just data, it's just feedback. And I make decisions based off of like what I want. And then the feedback lets me know, hey, was it the most efficient way or is there another more efficient way? So I think the key for like plastic surgery is ask yourself like the question, like, what will me doing that get me? Right? Like once I decide to get plastic surgery, what is the outcome of that? Is there ways I can get that in other areas? Or like, should I just do it? And then have nothing wrong with just doing it, right? The problem I think is like when we like, number one, we think that many of these decisions are like going to affect us in the most negative way. So going back to what we talked about earlier, like have that positive frame of everything is feedback and you're going to learn from it anyway, right? So I'm always learning from my wins and I'm always learning from my lessons, but like either way, I'm going to learn and get feedback and keep perpetuating like my progression in a positive manner moving forward. So I think like, to me, it's like, is it going to help you and accomplish the goal or is it not? And don't let yourself like allow other people to label plastic surgery as good or bad, because at the end of the day, it's just a neutral thing that you're assigning meaning to.
Yep.
So final question. I've got all the good questions today.
Love it.
So this attitude, right, that you described, right? Because it's not really about the plastic surgery, right? Let's be honest. It's not really about that. It's not really about the Botox or the rewarding yourself, like the lavishness. Maybe it is about that. I don't know. But how is that mentality important for wealth building?
So my thoughts on that, when I was judging the lavishness, when I was judging what does this mean about me to do this, to buy this, to have this, whatever, then that was me feeding into my own negative feedback, my own personal criticism, and that propelled me into poverty. I could not get myself into a better financial situation as long as I was approaching everything from this place of, well, does this mean something bad about me? Will other people see me a certain way if I do this? And basically just inviting judgment into the decision. Now, I just don't bring judgment into the decision, right? Because nothing has any meaning except what you assign to it. And so now if I can detach from spending $1,000 on shoes or buying, like investing with a coach right now versus in 6 months from now or whatever it is, I detach from what will it mean? And I just lead with, this is what I want right now. And so I can let myself have it. And that skill is actually how I also become successful in selling, right? Because I'm not like, what does it mean if they say yes or they say no? What does that mean about me, right? I'm creating this dichotomy and I'm creating identity in the outcome versus now I just say, it doesn't matter if this person says yes or no, because I know that I'm selling something incredible. So like, honestly, if they say yes, then that's amazing for them. If they say no, that's a huge loss for them not to work with me, right? And so it doesn't mean anything about me. I can sympathize, I can empathize and say, I'm so sorry that you don't believe in yourself enough to make this decision that you desire right now. I'm going to find somebody who can. And there is no limit to the people that I can find that I can serve. And that's all that I make it mean, is my work serves people. It doesn't mean anything about me. It doesn't mean anything about anyone else. My work is a service and I'm not attached to it, except that I love that it's a service, right?
Mhm.
And so the people who are ready to be served, that's who I serve. And the people who are not, then I let them go. Maybe we reconnect in the future. It doesn't matter because I'm not creating meaning or identity in the outcome, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in addition to what Liv said with releasing attachment and being more flexible in your judgments and labels that you're giving to things, I would also add how you view everything, right? So how you're viewing everything, at the end of the day, it's all neutral, right? Like, like material and like matter, it's just neutral, right? And we determine if it's positive or negative. So the simple shift that you can do is always search for the positive. And so that's the second thing I'd recommend doing in this like mental wealth shift is like, in addition to releasing attachment and being flexible with how you think and how you communicate, like Liv has done a great job teaching. Also, in addition to that, have the positive side, right? Always ask yourself, how can I find feedback from this? What is the feedback from this? And use that feedback to perpetuate your growth moving into the future. So, Ken, that's how I think it's helpful is like, number one, releasing that attachment and that judgment that we sometimes do, like Liv mentioned. And then number two is like, always look for the good, look for the positive, look for the feedback, because that's what everything really is it's just feedback. Like we're projecting it out and it is feedback. So if we know it's feedback, that's going to help us in the long term as well.
And sorry, Ken, I just real quick. So Lincoln in the comments says, if it's not immoral or unethical, why not? That's a good comment. And I want to take it one step further. And I want to say that for me, I don't even put it through the lens of, is this moral or is this ethical? Because I just believe that everything I do is inherently moral and ethical because I believe that I'm a good person. And that's where people tend to trip themselves up, is they are like questioning, am I good or bad? And so they're looking for validation in the decision. Does this decision make me good or bad? And
Right.
I mean, that's not it, right? You get to decide that you're good. And so all decisions are for your good, which is also why, okay, I'm so sorry. The term toxic positivity, I think, is a tool of the devil, because there's no such thing as positivity that can harm you, right? And so the idea that you can find something good in all things, that's actually the greatest gift that you can ever give yourself. And that's it. That's all I want to say on that.
Yeah, I'll actually say something instead of a question. So I was talking to my wife because she wants this mansion that's in town. And to me, I'm like, okay, I'm the person that's gonna put down the money for this. Right? But she wants it, right? She really, really wants it. And I was talking to her and I was like, when it comes down to it, I'm just not really that motivated toward it. Like I just don't care enough. It's like, what's really going to be the difference between having this lavish mansion and living where we're at? It's like more rooms to clean, like I don't really see that as a luxury necessarily, right? It's like, but it seems like everybody wants a mansion. Everybody wants a big house, a nice dwelling place and all that kind of stuff. And so it's like, should I want that? Should I be pleased with that? It's like, but I thought about it and I was like, what does it say about me that I wouldn't be pleased with it? What does it say about me that I wouldn't be excited to have that? That like when I do have it, that I wouldn't be excited about it. Yeah. And I think a lot of this too is like a motivation issue when it comes to wealth building, because you got to be motivated by something. And to be honest, eventually people that make a lot of money and they've bought whatever they wanted and they've driven all the nice cars and traveled everywhere, they start questioning, what is the value of having things? Like even after that journey. And so for me, it's like, maybe I'm questioning it too early, before actually like experiencing it. So to end, I wanted to ask you guys, what are 3 things, or at least one thing that like you have as a goal that you want to get, like a material object or an experience that you are purchasing that has nothing to do with being an investment or nothing to do with like starting a business. It's just for you. Yeah. What is at least one thing that you have your eyes on right now, or your heart set on?
I got a whole list of 100, brother. I got so many I could go through, but probably my
What's
favorite.
next? What's next?
Okay, what's next? The one that's anchored, and this is funny because like instant gratification, I'm not giving it to myself until I hit the goal, and so I like anchored it to a future goal. But my next one is like a full brand new like customized suit. I'm gonna go like into Men's Warehouse and have them measure everything and like make it super nice. And that, in addition with like an Ruth's Steakhouse in Salt Lake City, I'm gonna take my wife there and combine that together, and that's my next reward, and that's tied to like my next income monthly goal.
Well, this is kind of a hard question to answer. Because I don't believe that anything exists solely for me. Like, I believe that any decision I make has a snowball effect. And so even something like something that I am working towards, just to answer the question, is a trip to Europe, like a month-long stay in nice places, like do the whole thing upright kind of trip. And I can say, well, that's just for me and my husband. It doesn't like serve anything else. But that's not true, because when I do that, then it serves the people who work at the hotel that I stay at, who, you know, get paid to work there, or whoever I tip at restaurants that I go to, or you know, what going on that trip can inspire other people to give themselves permission to do. And I think that's why I don't like get super caught up in the good or bad of instant gratification, because I just decide and assume that all decisions that I make, even if I make them just for me, that they have an impact beyond just me, and that it will benefit many people outside of me. And so that's just the reality.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Yeah, for me, it is a Duckworth fishing boat worth about $85,000. So that's the next thing.
There you go. I love it.
Specific.
But Kenny, can you imagine the guy who gets the commission from selling you that boat? You like make his whole year.
Well, not only that, but can I imagine all the business that I do on the boat while we're fishing with people?
It's a very good point.
And how many smiles my children will have as they bring in fish, you know? So,
well, and teaching your children that they get to enjoy life. That's an invaluable lesson, right?
so really though, at the core of it, delete everyone else that's out there benefiting them. Is it still worth it just to get it only for me?
Oh yeah.
See, that's the mentality I think a lot of people don't have.
Right.
Specifically that.
Well, okay, I know we said we were done, but here's like one thing to consider around that. The boat that you buy, Kenny, it was created to be appreciated by someone like you. And because you choose to appreciate it, it was then created to be appreciated by you.
Love it. I love that. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. This has been a great conversation today. So everyone that's listening right now, or if you're watching the recording, know that we are creating a course on building the right mentality of having wealth. And that's going to be coming out very soon. It's going to be a very low entry fee into it. It's going to be $97, totally refundable as well. So the way to get the total refund is to participate in the course and to leave a review. So we'll have some details coming. If you're interested in that, please join Creo, our Facebook group, and we will have a post about it very soon, and just mention that you're interested, and we'll give you some details.
Yes. Very excited. Thank you guys all so much, Kenny and Jaden, for being here, having this conversation. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned in and listened. My sincere hope, and I think all of our hope, is that these conversations give you guys permission to start thinking different than you've ever thought, and to stop making yourself bad or wrong for the way that you are, and start exploring what your life would look like if everything about you was right. So hope that helps. If you need the link to join Creo, I think it's still in my bio. I'll double check and put it back in there if it's not. But it's a totally free group. That's where you're going to get all of the details of this super cool and multidimensional course that we're releasing. And we hope to see you there.
See you guys.
Bye, everyone.